Hey there everybody, it's Mark Curling. I'm back with another video. Today I'm going to be doing a complete read-through of my very first published comic book called Akiko on the planet Smoo. Sometimes people ask me, Mark, how did you get your start? How did you get published? And this is the answer. I made this comic book story way back in 1992-93 while I was an English teacher in Japan. And I thought what I would do is just read through the actual comic. It's about 33 pages long. Give you the experience of what it would feel like to read it yourself, and pause every once in a while where there are interesting sort of behind-the-scenes stories. So let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and get into it. My name is Akiko. This is the story of the adventure I had a few months ago when I went to the planet Smoo. I know it's kind of hard to believe, but it really did happen, I swear. It all started when I got this strange letter. Dear Akiko, we are coming to get you. Meet us outside your bedroom window tonight at 8 o'clock. Don't forget your toothbrush. Outside my window? On the 17th floor? As promised, a tapping came on my window at 8 o'clock.
Akiko, we're here. Hurry up, we don't have much time.
I was pretty scared at first, but finally I opened the window. Look, who are you guys?
I'm Bip. And I'm Bob. We're here to take you to the planet Smoo.
The planet Smoo?
It's pretty far from here, Akiko. In a different galaxy, in fact. We'll explain later. Right now, we've got to go.
Look, guys, I can't go to another planet. I've got a geography test tomorrow.
We thought of that, so we brought a robot with us to replace you while you're out of town. This way, no one will ever know you're gone.
Will she do well on my geography test? Okay, so I'll take a little break here to sort of explain how I created these pages of art. They were all done ink on paper, including these borders, all done with just ruler and coloring it in by hand. And any of this tone you see here was done with Zip-A-Tone, these kind of gray tone pieces of plastic that you cut out with a knife, with a hobby knife, and stuck into place. It was very time consuming, but I had a lot of time in those days, and I actually only had to complete one page per week. That was the rather modest goal that I set for myself. The interesting thing about the story is that I was pretty much making it up as I went along. One page at a time. I almost didn't know what was going to happen from one page to the next. So let's go ahead and continue with the rest of the story. So I agreed to go with them to the planet Smoo, leaving the robot behind to study for my geography test. Hey guys, shouldn't I put on a helmet or something? I mean, there's no air in outer space.
What are you talking about? There's plenty of air out here.
Wow, wait till my science teacher hears about this. It only took us a couple of hours to get there, so I guess we must have taken a shortcut or something.
This is it, Akiko. What do you think?
Very cool.
First, we're taking you to see the king. He has some important business to discuss with you.
The king? Is it okay if I'm wearing blue jeans?
Well, not really, but he's making an exception in your case. Just make sure you laugh at all his jokes.
Got it. As soon as we got inside the palace, I was taken up to see the king. Pleasure to meet you, Akiko. I'm Frop Tuppet, king of Smoo. I'm Akiko, 4th grader. So how are things in the Milky Way? I hear they're tearing down the Big Dipper and putting up a new constellation in its place.
That's a joke, Akiko.
Oh. It's good to see you have a sense of humor, Akiko. You're going to need it where you're going. Where am I going? To the other side of the planet. You're going to find my son, the prince, and bring him back safely to the palace. Where is he? I don't know. That's why I brought you here. Now wait a minute. How am I supposed to find somebody on the other side of a planet I've never been to before? I'm just a kid. Don't be so modest, Akiko. You were very highly recommended to me by a gentleman in the Andromeda Galaxy. He said you were an expert in these matters. But I don't even know anyone in the Andromeda Galaxy. Really? Maybe I misheard him. Well, don't worry, Akiko. I'm sure you'll do fine. Besides, you won't be doing this alone. I've arranged for some of my best men to accompany you. I didn't seem to have any other choice, so I said I'd give it a try. When I met my new companions, though, I started to have second thoughts. First there was Poog from the planet Toog. he was kind of hard to describe. Then there was Mr. Biba. He'd never been to the other side of Smoo before, but he'd read a lot of books about it. Next came Spuckler Boach. He looked like he hadn't taken a bath in about 14 years. Finally, there was Spuckler's robot, Gax. Spuckler promised it wouldn't break down. Not very often, anyway. So yeah, I haven't read through this myself in quite a number of years. It's kind of fun to revisit it, and I'd almost forgotten about how the entire plot comes down to a case of mistaken identity. Really? Maybe I misheard him. There is a sort of a sense of whimsy to this story where things don't need to make logical sense, which I think goes back to things like The Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland, where the story, you almost delight in thwarting these ideas of logic and just having fun. Creating these 4 characters along with Akiko, looking back, I realized that I had almost created my own career, at least for 5 or 6 years, when I created these 4 characters plus Akiko. Over the pace of about 1 week or so, I invented all 4 of these characters, and little did I know that I was launching a comic book series, eventually a series of young reader novels, and I look back kind of gratefully to this period of great creativity that I was not even really aware of at the time. Like Mr. Biba is sort of my cowardly lion type character. Spuckler was a sort of a Han Solo-inspired character, and I suppose Gax as well, R2-D2, C-3PO, that kind of thing. Poog, this character design, I still think is one of the most successful character designs I've ever come up with. People really did like Poog, and you will see in the pages to come that Poog does not speak English. He never speaks in an English language. He only speaks in Tugolian, I eventually called it, his native Poog language. But let's go ahead and get back to the story. The next morning, we left the palace. "Good luck, Akiko, and hurry back with the prince." "I'll do my best, sir." "What if we can't find the prince, Mr. Biba?"
"I don't know. I suppose we'll all have to hide somewhere for a few years."
"Don't listen to him, Akiko. We'll find the prince, no problem. Right, Gax?"
"Well, actually..."
"I said right, Gax?"
"If you say so, sir."
Soon we came to a door in the side of a mountain. According to Mr. Biba, there was a tunnel behind this door, which would take us all the way to the other side of the planet.
"Now all we have to do is figure out how to open the thing."
"Well, Mr. Brilliant, did it ever occur to you to try turning the doorknob?"
"Poog says to be careful. This door is not what it appears to be."
"You guys are always making things more difficult than they really are. Any fool knows that when you want to open a door, all you have to do is turn the ka-chuk." Just then, a trap door opened beneath our feet, and we all found ourselves falling down a long, dark tunnel. Since the tunnel was very long, Spuckler and Mr. Biba had time to discuss things as we fell.
"I told you not to turn the knob."
"You said the tunnel was behind the door, not under it."
"I'm sorry to interrupt you two, but I believe we're approaching the end of the tunnel. You might want to grab onto something if you can."
A moment later, we came out on the other side of Smoo. The only problem was, everything was upside down. Now what do we do?
"Don't worry, Akiko. I'm sure Spuckler will think of something."
I don't know what we would have done if not for Poog. He pointed out to us that we were upside down, and that everything else was actually right side up. It was really just a simple matter of letting go and trying not to fall in the wrong direction. "Thanks, Poog. I don't think I'd have figured that one out by myself. You all right, Gax?"
"I felt better, sir."
"Well, let's not waste any time. We've got a prince to find."
"According to this book, there's a hermit living near here by the name of P.Q. Goybi. If we can find him, we can ask him if he's seen the prince."
"Excuse me, Mr. Biba, but how do we know the prince is really on this side of Smoo?" "Because we couldn't find him on the other side of Smoo. Where else could he be?" "Well, what if he went to another planet, in a spaceship or something?"
"Really, Akiko, you must stop asking so many questions. You're making me nervous."
"Hang on, everybody. Looks like we're not alone in these parts."
One thing's for sure, I never thought I'd see one of these things again. What is it? Why, it's a long-horned fuba is what it is. I used to ride these things around on the moons of Jaguzzi. Come on, everybody, climb aboard and I'll take you for a ride. All right, so I thought I'd pause here and explain something that I later on learned could have been done better, and that is to have the surprise of this creature hidden behind one of the page turns. You know, if I were to do this story now, I would have this panel, this whole page over here, so that we don't see anything except the shadow, and there's that sort of moment of drama, and then you turn the page and see here the monster that's meant to be a surprise. But you know, this is how you learn how to do comics. You learn by doing, right? And by actually creating a comic book, panel by panel, page by page, I began to learn the tricks of the trade. All right, let's keep going. Have you lost your mind? You'll get us all killed. Trust me, Biba, you're going to love this. Spuckler seemed to have his heart set on giving us a ride, so Mr. Biba finally gave in. I can't believe I'm doing this. Now all I have to do is call out the command word and he'll take off running. Ready? Heech! Must have said it wrong. Geech! That ain't it either. Freech? With that, the Fuba took off at full speed. I managed to get a pretty good hold on his back, but I'm afraid we almost lost Mr. Biba. Spuckler, you lunatic! Stop this godforsaken beast at once! Spuckler, what's the word that makes them stop? There is no word that makes them stop. They just keep running till they get tired. That's what I love about these animals. This must have been a very energetic Fuba, because he kept running until after sundown. That night, Spuckler built a fire, and we all slept out under the stars. Spuckler, are there other planets out there just like Smoo? Yeah, most of them are pretty weird, though. The next morning, we came to a gigantic wall. It says, "Property of P.Q. Goybi. Go away." Well, we've come this far. We can't give up now. But how are we going to get past the wall? It must be 12 stories high. No problem. Gax and I have a little trick for getting through walls. We do? Ready, Gax? Is this absolutely necessary, sir? Stand back, everybody. Crash! Did it work? The other side of the wall looked like a big junkyard for old rocket ships. We found P.Q. Goybi working on one of them. Wait, don't tell me. You must be the kind people who just made a big hole in my wall. Well, we didn't have much choice, seeing as you forgot to make a door. I'm a hermit. What did you expect? Dinner invitations? We're sorry, Mr. Goybi. We didn't mean to disturb you. We just wanted to ask if you've seen this boy. Who is he? He's King Froptopet's son, the Prince of Smoo. Is that so? Well, I haven't seen him. Now get out of here. But can't you tell us anything? Can't you help us somehow? Forget it, Akiko. He doesn't care about anyone but himself. So you got a problem with that? As we were leaving, Poog began to talk very excitedly. Poog says we're in terrible danger. Oh, Poog always says we're in danger. Doesn't he know how to say anything else? Wait! Your friend is right. Have a look up there in the sky. I don't know what they are, but there's a lot of them, and they're coming right at us. Hurrying us all to the spaceship he'd been working on, P.Q. Goybi told us all to get inside. How fast can this thing go? Don't ask me. I don't even know if there's any gas in the tank. Please hurry, Mr. Goybi. They're almost here. Don't rush me, kid. Brum! Within seconds, we shot up over the wall and out into the sky, but the horrible insect creatures were not very far behind. Can't you make this thing go any faster? I bought this clunker from an old woman in Alpha Centauri. It was not intended for racing purposes. They're gaining on us, Mr. Goybi. Just then, P.Q. Goybi suddenly changed course, and it looked as if we would crash into the side of a stony cliff. Hang on, everyone. This might be a little bit frightening. At the last possible moment, PQ Goybi reversed course, and the nasty beasts flew straight into the rocks. That was easier than I thought it would be. All right, so I thought I'd pause it here and talk a little bit about, for me, looking back on this, it's interesting to see how quickly I arrived at the formula of Akiko, which is to say there's an action sequence, there's a quiet sequence, there's another action sequence, there's another quiet sequence. And I was always sort of toggling back and forth between those two, a little bit like the Star Wars movies, if you think about it. You're never allowed to get bored because there's always going to be another action sequence right around the next corner. And it served me well, I got to say, for quite a number of issues of the series. I kept up this pattern of just trying to keep it entertaining and not getting too deep into emotional storytelling and that kind of thing. Of course, in the years since, I have moved on to really entirely different types of stories, but I suppose this desire to entertain remains at the heart of my storytelling approach. Anyway, let's keep on going. Later, we took a rest at the top of the cliff. I gotta hand it to you, Goybi. You sure took care of those ugly bat monsters. Yes, you saved our lives. How can we repay you? Well, for starters, you can carry on with your journey and leave me alone. You don't mean that, Goybi. Why don't you come along with us? Yes, Mr. Goybi, we could use a man of your resourcefulness. Me? Join you? Don't be ridiculous. Mr. Goybi, watch out! Whoa! The creature carried PQ Goybi and I high into the sky, leaving the others behind. By nightfall, we came to a strange building at the top of a mountain. Is that a castle, Mr. Goybi? It's no ordinary castle. It's the castle of Gamgor. No one who has gone there has ever returned alive. The creature dropped us at the foot of the castle and flew away. It sure is a spooky castle. Does anyone live here? Well, that depends on what you mean by the word live. Just then a loud voice came booming down at us from above. Who goes there? It took me a second to realize that it was the castle itself which had spoken to us. Suddenly it lifted us up into the air with one of its gigantic arms. Who are you? What brings you to the living castle of Gamgor? My name is Akiko. I'm looking for the Prince of Smoo. Oh, you are you? Do you know what I'm looking for? What? I'm looking for something to eat. You put us down this instant, you architectural abomination! You've got a lot of nerve, old man. Maybe I'll eat you. No, stop! Please don't eat him. And why shouldn't I eat him, little girl? Because he's poisonous. If you eat him, you'll die. Very well. I'll eat you instead. Before I knew it, I was dangling just a few feet from the jaws of Gamgor. Just then I remembered my toothbrush. I pulled it out of my back pocket and threw it down into Gamgor's throat. Just as I hoped, my toothbrush got stuck somewhere down in Gamgor's throat, and he started to choke. In fact, he coughed so hard, he began to fall apart. Within seconds, the castle of Gamgor was in ruins. Mr. Goybi, are you all right? Yes, Akiko, thanks to you. Just then, a familiar spaceship came over the horizon. Inside were Spuckler and the others. Howdy, Akiko. We got a couple people here to see you. King Froptoppet and the Prince. Congratulations, Akiko. I knew you could do it. But I don't get it. How did you find the Prince? Why, he was never lost in the first place. The whole thing was a big test, to see if you were the right sort of girl to marry the Prince. Marry him? I must have fainted or something, because I can't remember what happened next. It must have been too much for her. I told you that whole Gamgor business was a bit extreme. That night at the palace, they threw a big party for me and the prince in honor of our engagement. A toast to Akiko Froptoppet, the future princess of Smoo. She's the bravest and most clever girl in the universe, and I should know, I've tested almost all of them. Just when I was beginning to wonder if I'd ever see my family again, King Frogtoppet took me aside and whispered something in my ear. "Don't worry, Akiko. You don't really have to marry the prince if you don't want to."
I don't?
I leave the matter entirely up to you. Of course, I hope you'll marry him. You see, he's crazy about you, Akiko. It would break his little heart if you turned him down. In the end, the king agreed to let me go back to Earth and think it over for a while. I told him I at least want to finish the 6th grade before I consider any marriage proposals. "Take care, Akiko, and don't forget my son is waiting for you."
"I won't, sir. I'll never forget any of you."
Life has been pretty quiet since then. I sort of miss Spuckler and Mr. Biba and Poog and Gax and everybody. They're a lot more interesting than most of the kids in the 4th grade. But I still can't decide whether I'm going to marry the prince or not. I mean, spending the rest of my life on another planet could be difficult. But then again, if I stay here on Earth, I think the chances of me marrying a prince are pretty slim. The end. So there you have it, my very first published comic book story. And I think maybe there's such a thing as beginner's luck, because I was a total beginner, but I managed to create a story that, as I said, would later launch my career in comics and continue. This series continued for a total of 53 issues, which is really pretty remarkable for a guy who didn't know what he was doing when he first started out. I do regret the ending of this story. I was about to come back to America, basically, after having taught English for a couple of years. I was running out of time, and I thought, I got to end this story before I leave Japan. And that's how I came up with this rather abrupt scheme of having it turn out to have all been a test. Not the best ending, but it had a good enough beginning and middle that I was able to use this to start my career in comics, which continues to this day. Brody's Ghost is probably my latest complete comic book series here, and if you're interested in getting a hold of this, unfortunately, it's only available in digital form now. So that's the way to get that if you want to. My only comic book that's really available in paperback form is The Drawing Lesson, the graphic novel that teaches you how to draw. And of course, I'm very, very grateful to anyone who supports me by getting either of those books, or indeed any of my How to Draw books. And let's go ahead and wind this one down. Let me know what you thought of this video. I have plenty more comics that I could read aloud in video form in this way if you enjoyed it. But let's go ahead and lay down this comic book. I want to thank you all for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back with another one real soon.